Every time you open a new chat, your AI has total amnesia. It forgot your business, your clients, your rules, everything you ever told it. Most people deal with this by re-explaining their entire business, their entire job, or their entire schooling in a single chat forever. I deal with it with a single file. My AI reads it automatically before it does anything, and it changes the answer it gives. I call it the Constitution, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what goes in it and how to build yours in an hour. Real quick context on me, I'm Dobie, and I run an AI agency called Dobot AI, and the entire agency runs on the system that I'm about to show you. About 150 written procedures, 150 scripts, all sitting in one folder that AI operates. And the whole thing starts with this one file. So in this video, I'm gonna show you what it is, why it works, and the exact order to build it on your own. Let's get into it. All right, part one, we have the chatbot versus the system. So let's start with just clearing the air about what we're building, because most people think the goal is just to make a chatbot and make it as smart as possible. But in reality, what we're trying to do here is build out a system. All right, so here's the difference. A chatbot will answer whatever you ask and then forget, whereas a system has a fixed job, a memory, and parts that do the same thing the same way every single time. So from this alone, you can kind of already see that a system is really what we're trying to build. And it's something that has revolutionized the way that I see my life, the way that I see my business, and honestly, how I operate. So the goal is to move from something that we just ask questions to and give us responses to something that can actually take control of the tasks that we have to do throughout our lives. And the way that I do this is by splitting up into two different pieces. And these two pieces is the brain and the body. The brain is the AI. In this case, I'm gonna be using Claude Code, but you can pretty much be using any of the latest models. And its entire job is judgment. It needs to read the situation, decide what needs to happen, and then check if the result is good. Brains are incredibly good at that. And LLMs, which we're using for our brains, are incredibly good at that. And it's so good because it's unpredictable. You ask the same question, you're gonna get two different answers. Now, the body is just plain code and files. These will be scripts that do the exact same thing in every single run. It will do things like sending messages, formatting, and compiling data. Anything that has to be reliable, we will go deep into the body. But here's the thing, a brain with a body is still useless if it doesn't know who it works for. A raw AI knows nothing about you, so we'll give you an average answer from the internet. That's why everything in this video is going to be so important. We're going to be talking about how to build your context. All right, so this is where we move into the actual Constitution. And the Constitution has two main parts, so we're just going to split that into two halves. The first half is who you are, and the second half is how your system runs. Starting with who you are, this is where you're really just going to be saying things about how your business works. It's going to talk about how you talk. It's going to talk about your past, maybe some stories that you have, your purpose, and the rules that you operate by. This is the context that's gonna remain constant throughout all of your AI agent usage that will allow your AI to give you results that are based off your life rather than something that's just based off an average statistic. Now, the second part is how the system runs. So again, just to clarify, this is personal context. How the system runs will explain how your brain and body are actually organized. So if I have a person here, and then you got a brain in here, and obviously this is the body. The part of the Constitution of how the system runs, it will describe that this is the brain. And the brain does the judgment, and it will also have directives. And it will explain that this is an arm, for example. And this arm will have the ability to send emails. So if whenever we want, we're gonna wanna send emails. And this is the leg. And the leg will be able to do deep research. And obviously those don't line up perfectly, but the main idea here is that we're just explaining the pieces of the brain and the body. That way, all the functionality is stored into one location. Now, here's the reason why you need both. If you only have personal context, then you just have a well-informed chatbot. You just have a chatbot that knows all your information and can give back data that you need. If you only have how the system runs, you're gonna have no context, and even though it'll have the ability to send out emails, automate your course studying, or handle onboarding, it won't have any context based on how you operate. So it's going to be generically operating. This is why we need both. So let me show you a quick example of how this will look. We're gonna be running this in Opus 5. I'm gonna be asking the question, how should I run my business? And while that's running, we're gonna go to my AI agent and ask, how should I run my business? Now, one thing to notice is that my AI agent here has the context that I was talking about, as well as the Constitution explaining exactly how to access this context. So in the desktop Claude window, it's asking a bunch of questions. That question has a good answer, but it changes completely depending on whether you're bootstrapping a 2-person shop or managing 40 employees. One thing that holds across nearly all of them, most small businesses fail, blah, 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 blah. So we're getting a very generic answer, and it's asking us to answer extra questions, which is very helpful. But if I need to answer these questions every single time that I want a good response, I'm never gonna make actual progress using AI. Now let's take a look at the different response here. I didn't need to ask any questions. And having full access to my files, it says something like, your files already answer this. The answer is uncomfortable, but you need to run it by subtracting, not building. It gives me 4 things that actually govern the business, the operating rule of underneath all of it, and then also just what the action item should be between now and Monday. All right. So let's just dive into my constitution. And I cleaned it up a little bit just so we can be a bit more quick with it. But one thing to note is that everyone's constitution is going to be slightly different. So yes, you can copy mine as a template. In fact, I have a full 6-hour course explaining exactly how to build out your entire second brain and body completely end to end inside of my school community. The link is in the description below, where you get weekly calls with me and a community full of builders and business owners who are building the exact same thing to revolutionize their life. So let's just get into the nitty gritty. So you can see here that I'm starting off with setup and commands. So this is really meant for all of the scripts. So the whole purpose of this is whenever I'm trying to run code, I want to make sure that my Python executions are available. That way the actual scripts can end up running and providing real output. Next, we have here the architecture. The Dough framework I learned from this guy. His name was Nick Syrev. Super cool guy. You should check out his stuff. And the core concept of this is really just splitting up all the pieces of the architecture. So directives, the whole purpose is natural language, what to do step by step. Orchestration is Claude Code. In this case, this is telling you, so you is the AI who's reading this document every single time we ask a question. This will teach the AI to actually be an orchestrator of a system, not just a chatbot. So it wants to load context, pick the directive to run the scripts, and check the quality. And again, directives are those natural language SOPs, meaning what to do. So we're gonna pick what to do, run the scripts, and scripts will be the executables, which are the Python files that are also generated. And so scripts really is really on the second layer here, which is execution. That's the deterministic Python API calls. So if we were to like split this up into the brain and body analogy earlier, the orchestration, this is the brain, and then the execution, this is the body. The directives is just information that we're plugging into the brain. One thing that I have here is my key directories. This just allows the brain to know exactly where to navigate through. So you can see here, I have my directives folder, my execution folder, all my skills, context about my agency. This is what I was mentioning before. Clients, the main brain itself, which will connect link notes of my business, worlds. And these worlds are really just pieces of my business that have extra tools and extra things. I'll be talking about that in a separate video. Things like naming conventions. Again, this is just to help the AI understand what I'm actually talking about whenever it generates new things, just to make sure that the file structure is consistent throughout. Orchestration flow, this is exactly how the brain should run whenever I ask something. So this is honestly the big difference between a system and a chatbot. It will go through the flow here every single time I prompt something, and it will start with parsing intent, meaning search through this entire file for keywords of what I'm looking for. Second, load context. So we want to always load the context agency, the core values, the brand voice, as well as relevant clients if I'm talking about them. So then the third one is execute directive. This is where you follow the SOP. Again, SOP is the directives named up here, step by step running the executions. I'll be talking about this in a different video. The way directives work is it's pretty much just a bunch of lines. They'll say, do this, do this, do this. And somewhere in here, it's going to say, run this Python file. And the Python file is the execution that will actually do the action. So execute directive means walk through the entire list end to end. And every time you see an execution, run the execution. Then it's going to run a quality gate just to make sure we validate the outputs. So this is another layer that a chatbot wouldn't do. It will just take chatbots normally just take information and spit it right back out to you. This will actually validate the outputs based off directives. The directives, again, the SOP will say, this is what it should look like in output. So our AI will have the ability to double check its work. Deliver. I personally like to have Google Docs and Slack notifications whenever new things are completed, so that I just have this. And then self-anneal. If something broke or a better approach was found, update the directive. So again, they're following this flow. If it comes to the point where something broke, something didn't work, and it didn't reach the outcome that the directive stated or the outcome that I asked for, it's going to go ahead and fix all of those things automatically. Context loading priority is another big one. This will just be the order of how we're going to be gathering information. We're going to start with the main three of context here. This will be agency, core values, and brand voice. Then go into the optional clients if necessary. Then find the correct skill, and then run the directive. This is the SOP that will call all the executions and actually do the work. Standard delivery pipeline, this is again really personal. I just like to have it inside of Google Doc and inside of Slack notification, not super important. And everything else down here, this is really just extra things that I have added just for the sake of my personal agent. So all of these will be different based off what your constitution is going to be built for and how it's going to supplement your life. So I always like to end these videos with applications. So we're going to go through all the steps that you're going to have to go through. So how to build your constitution. Step 1, make a folder. This folder is going to be your complete operating system. And this is where the constitution is going to live and dictate the values of the system. 2, ask AI to interview you. The whole purpose of this is to generate context. At this point, your AI knows absolutely nothing about you. So you need to be able to tell it to interview you so it can learn that context. Step 3 is voice. This is where you're just going to paste in your writing. So if you have any emails, you have any stories or whatever, you can paste all of that in just so it understands your language a bit better. Step 4, build out your client folder. This is only optional if you're running a business. One thing that I'd like to note is, although a lot of my examples are through business, you can actually just disconnect and reconnect different aspects of your life. So for example, if I was a student, instead of creating a client folder, I would create a class folder. But the point is, this client folder is just really something that you can replace with your own context that's relevant in your life. Then number 5 is assemble the Constitution. And you can have AI build this out just by simply asking all the information that I've talked about recently, build out a Claude.md file that will allow repeatable processes every time that I use this agent, such that it can pull past context as well as self-anneal. Now you have the ability to build out your own Constitution. That way you run with a system rather than running with just a chatbot. But this file is just the foundation, and this is just lesson 1. So if you want the exact scripts and prompts, as well as weekly help on how to build out this for yourself, once again, I have the AI Agents Operators community where I train you exactly how to build out these systems. It's the first link in the description. We are currently on early bird pricing, so I'd love to see you in there. And if you want to see my full course on what AI agents actually are, you can check out this video here.